but the more you do it and the more you show up for yourself, you'll start to be like, I need that in my life.
Yeah.
I can't go without it.
Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sharice Williams Show. I am Sharice Williams. This is the podcast created specifically for nurses looking to create, launch, and scale their own online coaching businesses. And with that, I am so excited, you guys. I have the privilege of sharing you with one of my clients, the phenomenal Aimee Motley. Welcome, Aimee.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so very welcome. I cannot tell you how excited I am to jump into the topic today, which I think is so important. And today's topic is the importance of emotional intelligence for the nursepreneur. And so before I jump into that, let me share with you a little bit about Aimee, and then we will just hop into it. So Aimee has been a nurse for 12 years with a background in cardiac care, case management, and she currently is a nurse educator. Not only is she a nurse educator, but she's also a health coach, an advocate, and mentor, and speaker. And she also happens to be receiving her doctorate degree in nursing leadership. Can you say she does a lot? A lot. But you know what? That's the caliber of women that I want to bring to you guys, because as nurses, there's absolutely nothing that we cannot do. Period, point blank, end of story. And it's just such an honor and a privilege to work with Aimee in the entrepreneurial space to really bring her mission, her vision, her desire into fruition. And so I absolutely love that. Emotional intelligence has played a huge part in that, I am sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And so Aimee, I shared a little bit about you, but tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who do you serve?
Okay, so currently I am, like you said, I'm a nurse educator. I primarily teach pre-licensure nursing students, but on the health coaching and wellness side, I empower high-achieving women like myself who is doing it all and might feel like they're doing so much and they might lose themselves. So I help them prioritize themselves so they can change the trajectory of their health so they're able to show up as their best selves, both mentally, physically, and just all around holistically.
My goodness, that is so needed. So needed, because you're right. It can be easy to lose ourselves and our own, our identity in the hustle and bustle of it all. We as women, we wear lots of different hats. As high achieving, high impact women, I think that's just amplified so much more. So I love that there's someone like you that's in this space that is helping those women, that demographic of women. Oftentimes we think that, they have to, our clients or our ideal clients have to be like down and out and falling apart and, on the verge of non-existence, right? But people sometimes forget that us high achievers, us high performers, doing all the things, wearing all the hats, we need support too, so that we can continue to function and operate in our highest or with our highest self, right? So I'm grateful for what it is that you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I thought about it and I got into it because of everything that you just said that I do. And I also have 2 small kids. I'm a wife and sister and friend and all of these things. And it can get so easy to just lose yourself and not really check in with yourself. And then you find yourself getting lost in the hustle and bustle of everything. And then you look up and there's migraines, there's fatigue, there's hypertension, there's diabetes, there's all of these things. And so my goal is to help women find themselves again through the form of self-care. So not just hair, nails, all that stuff, but the form of self-care of paying attention to what you eat, setting those boundaries, non-negotiables, actually taking care of yourself so you can reverse the diseases and the ailments that you found yourself in or that come up for you. And so through that, through taking care of yourself, prioritizing yourself, finding those moments, getting those tools in place so you can reverse the trajectory of your health and show up authentically and wonderfully you.
Can I just say, I love that. I love that. Oh, you're so welcome. I know. Here's the thing: we've co-created this, right?
Yes.
But it's so awesome to be able to sit on this side and just watch you just do your thing. Not so much from like a student perspective anymore, but more like just really stepping into it, owning it, and even the program that you developed that we've co-created. I mean, such a robust, beautiful, transformational or transformative, I should say, program. So people, women specifically, will definitely find themselves in a better place and in such amazing hands with you. So yeah. So let's hop into emotional intelligence. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us why you're so passionate about emotional intelligence, and specifically why it's so important for nursepreneurs.
Okay, so this came up for me as an educator and going to get my DMP, and we have to come up with a project, identify a gap, and all those things. And so as an educator, I realized that the seniors that I was working with, like, we had some work to do. And so to back up a little bit, so, like, emotional intelligence can be defined as basically the ability to understand, recognize, express, and control your emotions. But as I've kind of taken this topic under my wing and really, really spent some time with it, I kind of developed my own thing as a nursepreneur, right? And so my definition as a nursepreneur of emotional intelligence will be the ability to love yourself, to check yourself, and to be able to show up in the most authentic way and not lose yourself no matter what room or environment that you're in. Yeah. Always staying true to yourself, not suppressing how you feel, but being able to check how you feel. And so how I got into this was one semester, I was tasked with coordinating the senior capstone. So as nurses, we know that like that last semester, you got all these hours you have to do with your preceptor. And so we have like almost 120 students. So different experiences, they're everywhere in the community, in hospitals, different locations, one-on-one with their preceptors. And as the semester went on, I was getting emails from students and other people saying like, hey, this went on, or this was uncomfortable. Can I change preceptors? Can I change units or change shifts? Or can we just pull the students all together? And so when I started to really think about this, I was like, why is the first instinct to retreat?
Yeah.
Like, why is no one really digging into what is actually going on, but everybody wants to just either pull out and retreat? And I'm like, if we teach our nurses this or these students this, they're gonna be bouncing around and never really looking at the problem. And sometimes what I found as I dug into the issues was the problem wasn't necessarily the situation. The problem was that some of these nurses or the student nurses were not really saying, hey, this doesn't sit well with me. I don't agree with this. But either A, let me ask, why is this happening this way? Or saying that I might not agree with you, but we have to form some type of relationship. There's value in what you have because you're my preceptor. You can teach me something. I might not agree with everything, but can I manage my feelings and be aware of what's going on so I can have some relationship management and get what I need so I can grow? What's going to keep you self-motivated to stay on topic and stay on task? And so that's how I got into that. And so with my project, I didn't get to implement it with them, but I implemented it this past semester with a new cohort of seniors getting ready to, or already nurses at this time. But I did a professional development seminar where we started off with some self-awareness, doing an assessment of how well you show up in the room, how well do you manage your feelings and your emotions? Are you even aware of what may trigger you? And how do you, because as nurses, we can't react based off of our emotions. We got to take the facts at hand and say what's going on so it can basically help with our clinical judgment or our decision-making skills. And so I did 2 seminars of professional development to hopefully assist and help these seniors transition into practice from a perspective of really understanding that I'm getting ready to go into a world that may be very chaotic and very stressful at times, but am I self-aware enough to manage how I feel so I can move forward, build relationships, and take care of these people? And so that's how I got into it. As a nursepreneur, though, as I have evolved this definition for myself, this is not an easy journey.
It's not, I say it's not always rainbows and unicorns.
It's not an easy journey because, typically you've been in the world where somebody's like, okay, yes, I've grown and I have developed as a nurse, and I understand now what's in me and what I have to give to other people. But it's easy to do that when you're working for a corporation or a hospital and you're saying, hey, you have to teach about this, or these are your patients and this is what's going on.
You're giving guidelines, basically it's just hand it to you and you're like, okay.
Yes.
Versus
and on this journey, I had to love myself enough to know that the ability and everything that I've acquired over time, that's in me. And a lot of times I have to check myself and check my feelings to say, like, hey, you got this, you know this, you wouldn't be where you are if you didn't have this. And God would not have placed this vision or this desire in me if I was not able to make the impact that I desire to make. And so my journey into being a nursepreneur was, I was listening to your journey and I was like, I think that's how a lot of people come up with it. Like, you are in the mode of being a nurse and then you realize, like, this isn't right.
Something ain't right here.
Something isn't right. And so as an educator, when I'm like I love to educate, if you haven't noticed, but in my world of education, when I'm at the bedside with the students and I'm like educating them and I'm saying, this is happening, look at this is why we're doing this. The patients are lying in the bed like, tell me more. And I'm like, so they're not understanding exactly what's going on, how they got to this place. They know that we're going to give you some medicine and you'll go home, you'll keep taking the medicine. But nobody's saying that these are some things that you might need to do or change so that you can either come off that medicine, or let me explain to you really what's going on. Let's find out what's happening in your life, or what are your circumstances that we can potentially change so you can decrease or reverse this disease that you have. And so that's why Nursepreneur came up for me, because I'm like, a lot of people are just living lives and they're like professionally oriented and they have all of these things going on. And then when something happens, a disease or a symptom or something happens, it's like the connection is not made.
It's not. And just to interject you, and we've had this conversation before, how we as society have really become disconnected from our bodies. And it's not that, disease just pops up on us. It's typically years. And research is showing now that typically we go through 10 to 15 years worth of mild to progressively moderate symptoms before it's actually clinically, diagnosed. And so, but, and that's why I love, what it is that you're doing, and all of the women that I work with in the holistic health coaching space, is because we're rewinding, we're going back and say, okay, let's look at where we can implement something. Let's look at what your body's telling you, right? Exactly. Those migraines aren't just coming out of nowhere. The migraines aren't saying, oh, I think you're low on migraine medication. I think you're low on acetaminophen. No. Those are migraines that show
Mhm.
up for a reason. They're telling you, you might be dehydrated. You might be too stressed, which is the case for a lot of people. You might
People, yeah.
not be resting adequately. I
Mhm.
mean, and then don't let it be 3 or 4 or 5 of those things. No
Yes.
wonder. No
Yeah.
wonder, and then, no wonder we're having migraines and things like that. And then, of course, it becomes progressively worse until it is a full blown, not the migraines on a diagnosis, but until it's something worse and it's a clinical diagnosis, you're like, uh-oh, like, where'd this come
Yeah.
from? Well, it's been about 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, but it becomes worse to the point where, like, we were talking about migraines. Like, yeah, you might be clinically diagnosed, but then it becomes worse to the point where you can't function.
Oh, that was me. That was me. And I always say I'm really grateful for that even happening, because that's what put me on my holistic health healing journey. It had to get, some of us are a little hard-headed. And here's the thing, it's not even being hard-headed. I think it's just being just driven, so focused and driven. And we push things to the side. We get so laser focused. And for me, it did get to the point where I couldn't function. I was literally in bed. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't good. And so it was a
Yeah.
wake up call. It was a wake up call. So you said a lot of beautiful things, Aimee, as it relates to being self aware. What I heard first and foremost is being self aware.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And you said check yourself, checking in
Yes.
with yourself, right?
Yes. And so not only like
Mhm.
checking in with yourself, because we talk about this too, not just checking in with yourself to say, okay, how am I feeling? How do I need to express myself? Do I need to just like let it all out, cry, and just have a moment where I'm sitting with my feelings and things of that nature? But also, something else that we talk about is being able to check yourself. So when those fears and those doubts and all of these things come in, it's like, why are you feeling this way?
Yeah.
And so, like, if these things were to happen, if you were to do X, Y, and Z, what would happen? What's the potential for what could happen versus if you stay stuck in your feelings, where are you going to end up? And so it can be an uncomfortable journey, but you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable in order to grow and push forward. And so I think that's definitely where emotional intelligence comes in, because everything is not going to be rainbows and roses. And so you have to be able to say, like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, but this is where I'm going to put these feelings, manage it, not suppress them, but this is how I'm going to
Right.
deal with it so I can push forward and
And
continue to grow.
yeah, absolutely. And without judgment. Oftentimes we are so hard on ourselves. And if we feel that, and this is just from my experience, because on the holistic health side, well, on both sides of my business, the holistic health side as well as the business coaching side, I deal with high achieving women. That's who that's who I serve. And one of the commonalities is that as high achieving women, oftentimes we see it as a sign of weakness, that we have to cry, quote unquote, have to cry, or that we can't hold it together. And instead of understanding that going back to our connection with our body knows when and how it needs to express.
Mhm.
Right. So if for whatever reason your body is needing to express and release in the form of tears, allow it to do so without the judgment.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
because why? Why is there judgment? Why should there be judgment? And just allow. That's one of my big words is allow.
To happen.
And we talk about crying. I'm a huge fan of rage rooms.
Mhm.
Actually, at the beginning of the year, I tore some stuff up. And it was funny because I didn't think I had a whole lot of stuff bottled up inside. I feel like I do a really good job with checking in, like you were mentioning, really assessing what's going on, allowing myself to express. But let me tell you,
Mhm.
I really damaged some things in that range room. It was fun though. It was really fun. So, but giving yourself the space, and I didn't judge it. I'm like, clearly this was in here. Clearly it needed to come out.
It had to.
It had to, because here's the
Yes.
thing, it's going to come out at some point in time. Any unfelt or unexpressed emotions will manifest eventually. It's
Yes.
only, it's not if it's going to manifest, it's when it's going to manifest.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes we hold so much stuff in that for so long that it manifests as a physical dis-ease.
Yes. And so, like, it's like funny that you said that, because looking back on, so through my journey, I tell people, like, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis my last semester of nursing school. And so looking back on my journey as I got older and everything, I realized that, you look in the textbook, they're like, there's no one cause, so on and so forth. But my body attacked itself because I didn't know how to treat myself. Okay. So I'm the first nurse in my family, so I didn't have like that support and that guidance of this is what you should do. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself as nurses, as we do.
Yeah.
But I did not have a healthy way of expressing or really checking in with myself at the time. Didn't know what was going on. Not something that we spoke about in my family, of how to deal with stress or when you're overwhelmed and those things. So I suppressed.
Right.
I suppressed, and my body was like, And then it started attacking itself. And the way I made that connection was, after that, every time a stressful event would happen, I would have a flare.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would keep happening, I would have a flare. And so what I did at that time was, I would have a flare, I would call my doctor and be like, listen, medication's not working because my body's still going numb, I'm still feeling this tingling, so on and so forth. It wasn't until I really did the research on myself and said, like, listen, you got to get your mind, your gut, everything in alignment, under control. Treat yourself better. Stop eating the crap that you're eating
Yeah.
and really check in with yourself better so your body can stop attacking itself. And so with that, I was able to stop switching from medication to medication because I had to do the work for myself in order for me to be in alignment with what my body is telling me what's going on. And so stress is, people talk about anxiety and talk about stress, but that physical manifestation of it, like, it's,
Yes.
you don't know until you feel it and you're like, oh, this is what stress can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I want to dig into a little bit dig a little bit deeper into how do you check in with yourself? If you wanted to share one or two or three, whatever comes to mind, on how you can check in with yourself. So I know that some people are listening and they're like, okay, that sounds good, but what does that actually look like? What do I need to do?
Yes. And so I check in with myself by, one, I have to set a routine, right? My nightly routine of, like, maybe I'm journaling or I'm journaling out my prayers. I'm stopping and I'm thinking of analyzing and assessing everything that's going on. And I'm asking myself, like nobody else, but looking into myself, saying, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so overwhelmed in this moment? Okay, you have this, this, and this going on. Being okay with setting boundaries and non-negotiables, like after a certain time, that's it. To allow myself to not answer emails, phone calls, text messages, those types of things, and to be able to really sit and relax and to clear and just silence my mind, and to be able
That
to,
part.
how are you feeling in this moment? If I start to really feel that physical, like, where I feel like, okay, my emotions are out of whack, we're gonna sit down.
Okay, we're gonna go sit down.
Sit down. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna really figure it out. And another thing that really helps me with checking in with myself is my husband. Being able to, like, just be okay with being vulnerable and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling. I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. And sometimes if he's not available, just journaling or writing that out and saying, okay, this situation made me feel this way because this is what I can do to change that in me, not anybody else, but
Right,
change.
because that's the only thing you can control.
And so really it's about just not feeling guilty because of the things you have going on as a professional, as a wife, as a mother, not feeling guilty to say, I need a moment, I need some space
Yes. It's
to sit down and check in and do something for me, whether that is going for a walk. I like to go for a walk on a nearby trail, silence, and just nature. You get the
Mhm.
best.
Yeah. There's something magical, really, about reconnecting with nature
Yes.
and silence, for that matter. Silence and nature. I mean, and gosh, you've said so many great things. I was going to say, of course, getting outside. Getting outside, getting fresh air, having that direct sunlight. All
Mhm.
of these things are communicating to your body, all is well. We can
Yes.
relax. We can stop producing this. Our adrenals are like, okay, we can stop producing all that cortisol, bring down
Yeah.
that stress hormone, increase that serotonin, all of the
Mhm.
feel good hormones. And so, it really does cause a physiological response, a shift in our being. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I love that. And so what I'm hearing you say is setting boundaries. Well, checking in with yourself is
Yes. And
getting down,
checking.
getting quiet. No, go ahead. Wait, no, go ahead.
No, but in my mind, I'm like, when it sounds like sometimes what I hear is like, I'm so busy, I don't have enough time. Where do you
Oh
find
yeah.
this? But when you set those boundaries and that non-negotiable, I think it's important for people to realize that when you start setting like these routines in place, like for me to go to bed with my diffuser or the special sound that I like to set, it triggers my brain like, okay, it's time to shut down and shut off and kind
Yes.
of unwind and relax. Everything else that you went through today, all the hustle and bustle, it doesn't matter. When I put my diffuser on, whatever fragrance, my balance or my lavender,
Oh
and
yes.
I set my phone to my brown noise, where it's just background noise that calms me. And I get in my bed I have a weighted blanket. My husband bought me a weighted blanket, so
Those are
I'll
the best.
take
Listen, if you
it.
don't weight a blanket, you need a weighted blanket in your life.
Yes,
Everybody who's listening to this needs a weighted blanket in their life. Seriously, it's magical.
love it. But when I
Yeah.
get in my comfortable mode with those things, it's my body just like automatic. Like I'm
Yeah.
writing, I'm reading, I'm relaxing, and anything that needs to come up or come out is coming.
That's so
It's
beautiful. And I'm
and
and
so that
no,
works.
I was saying that's so beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing it because we've already at the very beginning of this podcast, I mentioned all of the hats that you wear. I mean, not only are you, a professor, but then also you have your own business, and then yes, you're a mom, and then all the hats, and it's so easy for us to say, I don't have time for that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
If you're DNP student, or
Yes.
doctorate student, not DNP, but what is it, Doctor of Nursing Leadership.
Yes. But
Again, all those. Huh, what'd you say?
it still comes up like in my mind. I'm
Yeah.
like,
And then
I
how
have
do you
time
navigate that?
for that.
How do you
And
navigate
so
that? Hmm.
I have learned to be okay with if it doesn't need to be handled today,
Hmm.
then at the time of my shut off, we'll pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
If it's not a dire need on my list of like, gotta get it done by this deadline today, we'll pick it
Yeah.
up tomorrow. Another thing that I have adopted is writing out kind of like my task list and putting like little dates beside it. And sometimes not everything is checked off, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's okay.
But we move it on until the appropriate time or the appropriate season for me to really focus on that. Like when we got on today, it's like I'm closing out a course. And so now that I'm closing out one of my courses, then I am readjusting, realigning, and saying, okay, now what do I get to focus on now? To get to the next step of what I need to do and being okay with, because sometimes it can be hard, so especially for us high achievers, to not accomplish everything on that list,
Yeah.
or not devote time to what you feel like you should be devoting time to.
Right.
And so that is definitely, it continues to take practice. This is
Hmm.
not
It is a
one
practice. No, not by a long shot.
no, no,
But it's so important that you mention that because oftentimes we're like, okay, let me just do this. Uh huh. Yeah. And then do it again. And it again. And guess what? You can do it again. But the thing of it is that you don't have to. But what I love about what you're sharing with everyone today, Aimee, is that not only is it okay, but it really is necessary to prioritize yourself so that you can continue to operate in the fullest expression of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And so setting those boundaries, or checking in with yourself, setting boundaries that are there to protect you.
Yes.
Protect yourself, sometimes from yourself. Sometimes we're protecting ourselves from ourselves, right? It's not even just about other people. It's like, let me protect myself from myself, because I know that I can work all day and all night. I know that I could, and so recognizing that it's important to set those boundaries, honoring those boundaries, because a lot of times we'll set them, but we won't honor them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say is setting the boundaries, honoring the boundaries, allowing yourself to express, whether that's through writing or what I actually heard you say is as you're writing, sometimes it just comes up and out, which is beautiful, not suppressing it and not judging it.
No.
Yeah. And then prioritizing yourself to get outside, get silence, no electronics, right?
Nothing.
And giving yourself what you need, so that you can continue to function better. I love how you beautifully illustrated, your diffuser and your brown noise, and it's really setting the tone. And again, it's so easy for us to say, I'm too busy for that. But we know what happens when we don't prioritize ourselves.
Yes.
And when we continue to not prioritize ourselves. So it's not even a matter of I don't have the time, or I can't afford to take the time. You really can't afford not to take the time.
Yeah. And one thing I realized and learned, because there are days where I'm like, I can't get outside and go for a walk. But on those days, I will set up a little workout area in my house.
I've seen that.
The goal is to, not necessarily the goal is what I do. I wake up at between 6 and 6:15, but I try to get something in for me, some type of physical movement, a workout or something in for me before my kids get up.
I know, because once they wake up, it's on. It's on.
Yes. So starting my day,
we love them, but it's on.
So starting my day, I just got this new beautiful devotional that gives you one in the morning and one in the evening. And also starting my day with some form of exercise. And the more you put it into your routine, one thing that I have learned is when you start to tell yourself, I ain't got time, I don't feel like it, I'm just gonna lay here in the bed, your body starts to be like, but what about me?
Yeah.
Those thoughts are like, but I'm not gonna reach my goals, or I'm not gonna show up for me today. So how are you gonna feel going throughout the rest of the day knowing that you didn't show up for you? And so then you start to kind of be like, okay, bye, you get me in check. Let me get up.
You got to check yourself. Going back to one of the things you said originally, check yourself, check in with yourself and check yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It comes up. We're human, but the more you do it and the more you show up for yourself, you'll start to be like, I need that in my life. I can't go without it. Yes.
I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us around emotional intelligence, from an entrepreneur, nursepreneur perspective? Any final thoughts or things you'd like to share?
Well, I think for me, it's just the reminder that it always continues to evolve. We've been working together since this past year, and it's evolved, but there's still work to be done. I accomplish one thing, I get clear on one thing, and then I enter into the next phase of actually doing something different, putting myself out there and doing things that I didn't have to do before or that I'm not comfortable with, but stepping out of my comfort zone. And so emotional intelligence continues to evolve as you continue to grow. But when you show up for yourself, it's always pays off. There's always a reward at
Always
the
a
end.
reward. I love
Yes.
that. That's a beautiful way to close
Mm.
this podcast. Yeah. Aimee, thank you so much for all that you shared. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for being literally a demonstration of what it looks like to be that super busy, maxed out. I don't know if maxed out actually is the word. I don't know that you're maxed out. Sometimes you feel like we're maxed out, but being that woman who does it all in school, teaching school, running a business, running a household, all the things, and prioritizing herself so
Absolutely.
that she can continue to do all those things. And
Mhm.
and this is coming up for me to share, and not looking at it as being selfish,
Yeah.
but being self full, really, like filling yourself. So that I always say, we're so used to, as women, let's just start there, as women, as
Yes.
nurses, as
Yes.
moms, we're so used to pouring out, pouring,
Mhm.
and oftentimes we're pouring from an empty cup. And so the things that you've shared with us today in terms of, self-care, checking in with yourself, setting your boundaries, checking yourself if need
Yeah.
be, creating the routine, filling your cup so that you can give from your overflow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that. And so thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
Oh,
you for
you're
having
so very
me.
welcome. If people are like, oh my gosh, I love this lady. How can I get more of her? Where do I find her? So where can they find you, Aimee?
Very simple. Aimee Motley. You can find me Aimee Motley on Facebook, but my name is spelled Aimee. And then, of
That's
course,
right.
Motley, Motley. I don't find many people with that spelling, so I needed to
Yeah.
clarify that. So Aimee. You can find me on Facebook at Aimee Motley.
Cool. And we'll put it in the show notes too. So that way, if people are driving, listening, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know how to spell it, it'll be in the show notes. So just look below. And again, thank you so much, you guys. Or thank you, Aimee. And thank you for all of you that are listening. If you
Yes.
found this helpful, share it with a friend. This is what happens whenever we're listening. It's either one of two things. Either it resonates with us and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need that. I need
Yeah.
that. I need to start doing that. Or we immediately get like a visual of someone, whether it's a colleague, a friend, a sister, a mom, whatever, who is in the same space, this nursepreneur space. And so if someone came to mind as Aimee was sharing today, do them a favor and share this episode
Yes.
with them.
Yes.
Share this episode with them. And so that wraps for today for our podcast on the importance of emotional intelligence from a nursepreneur perspective. Again, thank you, Aimee. You guys, I'll see you next time right here for the Sharice Williams Show. And I'll see you over in the Holistic Health and Empowerment community. Bye for now.
Bye.